Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. Andrew Perrault has always been an empty boy, a fragile teenager with pale skin, honey-gold hair, and a mind overflowing with cruel, bitter fairy tales. Returning to the elite, ivy-smothered Wickwood Academy for his senior year, Andrew is consumed by anxiety. He relies entirely on two people: his twin sister, Dove, a statue of glittering ice who is beautiful, dangerous, and impossibly perfect, and his roommate, Thomas Rye. Thomas is a tempestuous, fiercely protective artist with auburn hair, a sharp jaw, and a constellation of freckles, who translates Andrew's dark stories into macabre, ink-stained drawings. But as the school year begins, the trio's bond is fractured. Dove is giving both boys the silent treatment following a mysterious summer argument, and Thomas arrives looking disheveled, sporting a blood-stained sleeve and a cagey demeanor. Within minutes of arriving, Thomas is pulled aside by the police, who question him about his parents' sudden, violent disappearance over the summer. The school whispers that Thomas is a murderer, a rumor gleefully fanned by Bryce Kane, a white, all-American golden boy whose charming smile hides a cruel, predatory nature. Despite the horrific accusations, Andrew stands by Thomas, but he soon discovers that Thomas is hiding a secret far more terrifying than a violent family dispute. The terrifying creatures Thomas draws, creatures inspired directly by Andrew's dark fairy tales, are coming to life. Every night during the witching hour, Thomas slips out of their dorm room, armed only with a garden spike, to battle the monstrous manifestations in the dense, suffocating forest surrounding the school. He believes his art is cursed, and that if he doesn't slaughter the beasts, they will breach the campus and slaughter the student body, starting with Andrew. Desperate to save the boy who holds his heart, Andrew insists on helping. Together, the prince and his poet venture into the dark. Their nighttime skirmishes are brutal and bloody. They face swarms of thistle fairies, tiny, vicious creatures with needle teeth that burrow into Thomas's bare back, and towering bone shrikes with ram skulls and cloaks of mold. Despite their efforts to destroy all of Thomas's sketchbooks, the monsters only grow bolder and more grotesque. Simultaneously, Andrew begins experiencing a horrific psychological unraveling. He is consumed by visceral body horror, convinced that the forest is taking root inside him. He coughs up dirt and bruised petals, feels vines twisting through his intestines, and discovers spongy, rotting mushrooms manifesting in his pockets. After a terrifying encounter in the school bathroom with a hoofed beast, Andrew is left traumatized, but his distress is dismissed as a mere panic attack by his peers. The only person who steps in to defend him is Lana Lang, a spiky Chinese-American drama student with a jagged ponytail and deep mauve combat boots, who fiercely protects Andrew while harboring a venomous hatred for Thomas. The horror breaches the school walls in broad daylight. Professor Clemens, a smarmy, sharply dressed calculus teacher who thrives on humiliating his students, confiscates Andrew's phone. As Clemens marches a terrified Andrew through an empty hallway toward the principal's office, the wallpaper tears open. Vines and blood-weeping roses erupt from the plaster. The Antler King, a towering abomination with a crown of bone and a mouth overflowing with maggots, steps out of the shadows. The beast demands a tithe. It slaughters Clemens, peeling the skin from the screaming teacher's face. Andrew is nearly killed before Thomas arrives, wielding a stolen hatchet, and brutally hacks the monster to death. Covered in gore, the boys hide the evidence, leaving the school to pass the grisly murder off as a tragic structural collapse. Exhausted, starved, and terrified, the boys' codependent relationship reaches a fever pitch. Thomas is wearing himself down to the bone to protect Andrew, and the intense proximity forces their unspoken feelings to the surface. During a tense conversation on the damp garden steps, Thomas confesses that he is entirely in ruins for Andrew, revealing that he has been in love with him for years. But Andrew, who is asexual, misinterprets Thomas's romantic devotion as a demand for a physical relationship he cannot give. Terrified of his own brokenness and desperate to push Thomas away before he can be abandoned, Andrew cruelly asks if Thomas only likes him because he misses Dove. He presses further, asking if Thomas and Dove kissed during their mysterious summer fight. Shattered by the accusation, Thomas retreats, leaving Andrew to spiral into a frantic panic. Desperate for comfort, Andrew runs blindly across the campus, searching for his twin. He finds Dove near the edge of the dark tree line, but when he begs her to believe him about the monsters, she refuses. With pity in her eyes, she tells Andrew that he is hallucinating. She gently explains that Thomas never returned to Wickwood this year because he was arrested for murdering his parents over the summer. Andrew's mind shatters at the lie. He screams for Thomas, plunging into the forest. Thomas meets him on the dark path, solid, bloodied, and fiercely real. When Andrew begs Thomas to prove he isn't a hallucination, Thomas kisses him, a desperate, bruising collision of teeth and terror that anchors Andrew to reality. But when Andrew insists that Dove is right behind them, trying to gaslight him, Thomas pulls away with a look of absolute, haunted devastation. Thomas gently, agonizingly forces Andrew to confront the truth. Andrew was not talking to his sister. Dove is dead. The horrific reality of the summer rushes back to Andrew, tearing his fragile mind apart. 5 months earlier, Dove and Thomas had fought fiercely over Thomas's intention to confess his love to Andrew. Dove, terrified of losing their perfect trio, had forbidden it. Thomas stormed off, and Dove wandered alone into the forest, where she fell from a tree and died. When Andrew woke to the news of his twin's death, his mind completely fractured. He punched a mirror until his hand was a mangled ruin of glass and blood, and then he simply erased her death from his reality. He hallucinated her presence, her judgment, and her icy distance all year. Thomas never corrected him. Thomas took the blame, the hatred from Lena, and the rumors of murder, all to protect Andrew's fragile psyche. The monsters were never coming from Thomas's drawings. They were born from Andrew's notebook. Andrew's repressed grief, his guilt, and his desperate, twisting fairy tales were feeding the forest, manifesting his emotional rot into physical abominations. The forest had been growing inside Andrew all along because he was the source of the horror, and the monster's relentless hunger for a tithe was actually the forest demanding the ultimate sacrifice, the prince himself. Unable to live with the truth of what he has done, Andrew slips away from Thomas in the dark. He walks deep into the woods, confronting the horrific manifestations of his own mind, including the hanged, vine-choked corpse of his bully, Bryce Kane, a murder Andrew's subconscious had orchestrated. Andrew finds the wildwood tree, the ancient monstrous heart of the forest that had taken his sister. He retrieves his notebook of fairy tales, realizing that every good story ends with a wishbone snapped, a bloodied kiss, and the prince's sacrifice. Kneeling among the blood-soaked roots, Andrew takes a box cutter and prepares to carve out his own heart to appease the woods and save the boy he loves. He writes his final story in his own blood across his skin, documenting a prince who cuts himself open to give his wretched heart to an October boy with 1,001 freckles. Just as Andrew presses the blade to his chest, Thomas tackles him to the forest floor. Beaten, bleeding, and weeping, Thomas refuses to let Andrew die. He begs Andrew to understand that Dove's death was a tragic accident, not a sin that requires his life as payment. Thomas kneels before him in the dawn light, offering a horrifying, beautiful alternative. He reminds Andrew of the fairy tale's rules. The forest demands a heart, but it doesn't have to be Andrew's. Thomas bares his own chest, offering his life, his heart, and his absolute devotion so that Andrew can live. In the quiet sepia-toned dawn, the monsters wait silently in the shadows. Andrew's fingers trace the warm, beating flesh over Thomas's ribs. Realizing that they are bound together in a love so profound it is entirely monstrous, Andrew accepts the offering. He tells Thomas that if he cuts open his chest, he will find a garden of rot. Thomas doesn't care. He promises to hold Andrew's hand in the dark forever. As Thomas closes his eyes and sleepily asks for a kiss to prove they are real, Andrew leans down, the blade trembling in his hand, and begins to cut.